May I? I welcome you all once again for the panel discussion on optimizing omni-channel marketing automation with CX and MarTech. We would like to begin by thanking you all for being a part of the 17th edition of Marketing Conclave. We would like to thank our cloud communication partner, Root Mobile, our session partner, IIB Tech Lab in partnership with PubMatic, Gold partner LogicServe Digital, session partner Agrea Technologies, bronze partner Bobble AI, and knowledge partner Cantor. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Mr. Vishal Kamath, the Executive Director and Head Digital Measurement Nielsen, who will be moderating today's discussion. Please welcome our esteemed set of speakers, Mr. Tushar Agnihotri, the Country Head India and Regional Head APAC, Root Mobile, Mr. Kashyap Badapalli, the Chief Marketing Officer and Business Head, Pepperfry.com, Mr. Udit Jain, Head of Marketing, Airtel Payments Bank, and Mr. Sachin Vashishtha, the Director, Digital Marketing, Paisabazaar. I would request all the delegates to keep posting your questions in the chat box or the Q&A section. The panel may pick up a few in the end and answer to your queries. Over to you, Mr. Kamath.
Thanks, Swati. Good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome to all my panelists. This is a very important topic on optimizing omnichannel marketing automation with CX and MarTech, which we'll be discussing over the next 45 minutes. Because at the heart of it, we are trying to deep dive into what organizations need to do, what are some of the challenges we are facing, what do we stand to gain out of this, and more importantly, how does it help us serve our customers better and build a lasting relationship with our brands. I couldn't have asked for a better panel than today. We have the right industry experts for this topic. So thank you again to all my panelists for joining today. One important housekeeping rule, though, I'll call out for all the attendees is, while you post in your Q&A, please also mention the expert to whom you want your question to be directed to. So that's one. And second is, please try and take away at least one important point from each of the experts. If you are able to build on that, I'm sure we'll be able to bring about a meaningful change within our organization. So without further ado, Udit, let me start with you. As India's first payment bank, if I'm not wrong, what you're trying to do is get a large unbanked population into the banking ecosystem, which is very critical. And while your services are online, you do have offline touch points as well. And I'm sure that a lot of your customers, a lot of your prospects do reach out to you through different means, including WhatsApp, emails as well. So if you could elaborate on what are some of the initiatives that you have undertaken and how do you leverage MarTech and OmniTech platforms to offer that seamless experience to your customers, be it from an advertising perspective or even for, let's say, solving the kind of queries that they come back to you with?
Thanks, IMA team and Vishal for having me over. Really delighted to be part of this conversation. Actually, I think omni-channel experience and marketing is something which is really close to my heart, and it has definitely become a trend in past 4 to 5 years. And Vishal, you are absolutely right. The bank currently caters to both very varied set of segments, is what I would say. At one end we have a bottom of pyramid consumers who are in very large underbanked, tier 2, tier 3 cities. At the same time, we have got a lot of digital consumers who are probably in tier 1 towns or urban cities or metros. And to actually cater to this diverse set, we have got a very robust. I will first talk about probably the customer experience bit, and then we'll probably move to the communication part of it. So we have actually got a very robust experience framework which is available across for both digital pyramid consumers. And as of now, if you look at it, a customer can actually reach us through multiple modes, right? He can actually call us at a call center. They can mail it to us. They can put a query on a leading social media platforms like Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, or in fact, they can actually go to our app and probably do a chat from over there or put up a query over there, which basically means that there are almost 5 to 6 channels from which probably a customer can actually approach us. And at a similar time, a lot of people might not be still very savvy to do this. And for that, we have got CGOs which are in over 250 districts where consumers can actually approach and probably get their queries addressed. What we've also done is for a digital users currently, what we have done is online dispute resolution, which is just introduced maybe just a couple of months back. This is, of course, also a mandate from RBI, which we have to do. But it's a very powerful change for the digital consumer that it will empower customers to get resolution on the go. And this is also actually system-driven, rule-based mechanism where the manual intervention is actually none. Okay, so automatically a customer gets a resolution based on the certain rules and template which have actually been devised. With the system in place, and the customer can actually check the status of the transaction after initiating it, and option of waiving a service request is then and there. So you can actually do it at that particular point of time. Now, what we are doing actually to integrate all this, what we have done is we have got a one customer view, as an internal platform where all of these actually come together. And so if somebody is calling us from let's say from a call center, that's the similar views available to that guy. Similarly, somebody is making it to us. So an agent who is responding, again, a similar view available to that particular agent, which basically means that no matter from which channel a customer is coming in, they get responded in a very, very similar fashion. Okay. To standardize the communication part of it and to maintain consistency for these kind of communication, what we have done is primarily two things. Apart from one customer view, is we've got a very standardized decision tree. So every customer query, over past 4 to 5 years, we have thought about like multiple and thousands of queries which we probably would have, and those decision trees have been very beautifully thought. Okay, and it has been put into a format where, let's say, a agent would not have to really think about it. If there's a question about transaction, they have to go through multiple 4 or 5 steps and get addressed as a process, which ensures there is consistency across multiple channels, whether it's an email, whether it's an online, whether it's a chatbot, whether it's on social care. Okay, so it gets addressed all across. Second thing is, and which a lot of people actually miss out, is there's a standardized tone of voice, the way you want to communicate to the customer. Do you want to use the word hey, or you want to just say hi, or you want to address it by name, you want to do a warm greetings to a customer? Because why this is very important is because a lot of people, sometimes the customer might feel, okay, if I'm calling up a call center, maybe this is a different organization. And if I'm actually emailing them, they are responding it in a very, very different format. And hence the tone of voice and everything has to be very, very similar across multiple touch points to make it look like that it's part of one brand. Apart from that, and probably, a lot of other panelists are there. I'll just address very quickly to address to these customers, and when I want to now communicate to these guys, right? One is the customer experience part of it where we come and solve it. The second part is the customer's communication. Again, because we have got a one view of the customer, we have got multiple channels with which we can approach them. We can approach them with SMS, we can approach them with email, we can approach them with maybe a voice channel for that. And again, that all is stored into our one data platform where we can actually go and communicate to these guys.
Thanks for that, Udit. I can only imagine the diverse profile of customers that you cater to and the challenges that it poses to you. And I like the thought that, on how you elaborated on how automation and standardization of processes are actually helping you cater to their needs much better. Just if I may have a follow up to this, Udit, so for me as an individual, and I'm sure many who bank, who keep our hard-earned money in bank, end of the day, we all expect that sense of surety, security from a bank as well, right? And the expectation around, let's say, personal touch. And from your perspective also, I'm sure you do collect a lot of feedback from customers time and again.
Right.
So for omni-channel marketing, these platforms that you have in place, are these the same set of platforms that you also use for collecting feedback? And if you do, what role does feedback by itself play within the entire system, to ensure that there's a better experience that we can offer to our.
Okay. Uh, Nice question, actually, Vishal. Uh, See, all the customer queries and responses which come through the service channel definitely is, I would say, one of the response mechanism where you actually take the feedback from the customer. But that's primarily a service-related response which you are actually getting from a customer. And what are the problems with your processes, systems, and everything. Apart from that, one important thing which is there in an omni-channel marketing is, how much can you actually personalize your information or let's say communication to a particular customer. And for that, what we actually do is, we use multiple platforms. For example, we use Data Hub for automation, wherein all the data of all the customers come and sit at a one particular place. And this Data Hub, along with the multiple product APIs and content management system, which we actually use, it helps to automate our communication and reach to customers in a very, very personalized way. Okay, so I think that's one part of it. And over a period of time, what we have come to know is that through automation, machine learning, with multiple channels, we now know which channel a customer responds to, whether he's responding to an app, whether he's responding to an SMS. Because let's say when you probably give a notification, a customer is actually clicking onto that particular notification, right? You automatically get to know about it, whether the customer is really whether he's clicking onto it, right? And what time is he clicking onto it? Similarly, an email, what time is a person clicking onto it? Is it on a Friday? Is it on a Sunday? Is it responding? So what happens is over a period of time, you get to know through a lot of intelligence and multiple communication to the customer that these are the right channels to arrive to the consumer. So I would say, the response channels, which are primarily your customer experience channels, but the CTRs on these particular channels, like an SMS or maybe an app notification, automatically also are your feedback mechanism. The interaction of the use cases with the customer is adopting, right? Whether he's now paying a bill, he's doing a transaction, he's doing a recharge, he's maybe buying a digital gold with you. All these again are for us the interaction or the use cases which we get to know about the consumer and what he is actually doing around it. Apart from that, nothing which can be automated is also a lot of in-group discussion which we do, but that's tactically fed into the automation software, because that's something which you can't really automate. That's much more qualitative in nature. What this does, Vishal, is this entire thing, all the data from multiple places and everything which you probably collect gets fed onto the system. And further through our data science systems and the team, what we do is we can keep on now coming up with a personalized communication to these guys. So I think that's the way I would probably do it, because now at what time do you want to target a consumer, which channel do you want to target a consumer, what do you want to target with them.
Thanks for that detailed perspective, Udit. Quite helpful. I'm sure everyone who has joined us in this session would have taken a lot, for them to also ponder about and action on. With that, coming to you, Sachin, Paisabazaar, again, a strong brand name many of us use for our credit requirements. And I'm sure there is a lot more that you do as well. Because consumers do, again, when they interact with you and your brand, do expect transparency, patience while addressing their queries, on financial products. I have spoken to so many folks and agents, and the terms and conditions are literally never ending, and the kind of questions that people end up and the kind of information that they seek for. Because end of the day, products like, let's say, loans are like big decisions that we all take. So if you could elaborate on what do you do from a omni-channel communication perspective to drive that consistent engagement and messaging, and more importantly, personal touch, again, very important for you, with your prospects and customers across platforms.
Yeah, thanks, Vishal. First of all, thanks for having me here. You rightly said that loans, taking loans is a big decision in anyone's life. If you look at it, people usually take, on an average, 3 or 4 personal loans in their entire lifetime, or maybe 1 or 2 home loans, right? Or maybe a couple of car loans, right? So it's a once in a multi-year kind of a decision. It's an important decision. That's why we need a lot of information, right, to give you the right product. That's the motive and the genesis of Paisabazaar, right? The other part is that people who seek loan, not necessarily all will get one, right? Because of a number of credit issues, the number of underwriting rules. There are different rules, different ways a bank assess the eligibility, right? So let's say if 100 people apply for a loan, usually 35 or 40 people would get it. That's how the calculation goes, right? So it's very important for us to assess the eligibility in the right way and suggest the right bank or the right product to the consumers. Now, let's come to the omni-channel part of it. Udit very rightly mentioned that before going into anything related to omni-channel or MarTech, first we need to have our data sorted. He mentioned one customer view, right? We internally call it a data lake. Right, where all the data streams, be it from call center or the click stream data or the credit score data, or all these streams, they go into a large data lake where we have all attributes, all activities of a consumer mapped against it, and this data is available to all these stakeholders. The same data is available to a product manager, which he or she can use on the website. The same data is available to the marketing people, and they can use the same set of data in their communication. Same data is available to the call center guys. That is the most important piece, and largely overlooked, I would say, because omni-channel marketing or MarTech, it's kind of a fad these days, just like artificial intelligence. And everyone would want to get into this bandwagon, that I also want to do omni-channel marketing. I also want to integrate SMS, email, WhatsApp, or whatever channels I'm using. Because, channels are largely the same. Like Udit mentioned, we, reach out to our customers, or our customers reach out to us via every possible way of communication, be it email, be it SMS, be it WhatsApp, push notification, etc., 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 right? And then there are other acquisition channels also, like Google, Facebook. So most of the time, if the entire data set is not present at one place, and if different stakeholders are using different data sets, different data values, most of the time there is a overlap of communication, or I would say a duplicacy of communication, right? To avoid that, having a centralized data view is the most critical thing. So we have that was we started doing working on our data lake around 3 to 4 years back. It was not a very easy task, getting all stakeholders at one place, getting everyone on the same page, and just to sort out the data issues. Over that, we have a layer of our own segmentation platform, which is a inbuilt in-house software. We are not relying on a third-party software as of now, right? We built our own, and then every channel is connected to that platform. So and then again, Udit has mentioned most of the things, so I would probably be repeating everything, right? So channel propensity, we use that. People tend to interact with one channel more than any other. Like, people tend to interact with WhatsApp more, some people tend to interact with email more, right? So having the right channel propensity, having the right time propensity, these are all important aspects of the overall communication plan. And now the other thing is, we are a product, like I mentioned in the start, that it's an important decision, and people usually interact with Paisabazaar for the right demand usually 5 or 6 times a year, if it's only loans, right? That is why we have a product called Free Credit Score. Even if you do not need a loan right now, right, it's a good habit to keep a track on your credit score, because you never know when you'll get one, right? And if you will not have the right credit score at that time, it will be difficult for you to get a loan at that time whenever you need it. So track your credit score, and keep a healthy credit score is a good habit, and we promote that. That is the center piece of our communication strategy. be it the acquisition strategy or the engagement strategy, credit score has always been the centerpiece for that, right? So we what I would say, we promote healthier habits, what you should do, what you should not do, etc., etc. And again, using the right channel mix basis your propensity to open the communication on what channel. Yeah.
No, that's quite helpful, Sachin. And a lot of this, I think we also looked at from a B2C perspective. I just also wanted to get your perspective, when we look from a B2B, because end of the day, when we are taking loans, I'm sure you engage with your banking partners as well. You are pushing communication in a particular way to all the prospects out there, but we know that in parallel in the ecosystem, banks are also doing their bit. So, in whatever systems that you have in place, do you also have some kind of integrations with your B2B partners so that there's a more consistent messaging going out?
Yeah. So we do have end-to-end linkages. I would say end-to-end journeys with most of our partners, but still it is not 100% end-to-end, because lending as an industry, right? We had an offline leg. We still have an offline leg to it, right? If for a few products we create an application and that application goes offline, where either us or our partner, we have to go to the consumer to receive documents, to get it signed, etc., etc., right? And sometimes this these activities, they and the feedback, they do not get recorded in real time, right? So sometimes when there's an offline lag, there's a broken journey. We are trying to get a seamless journey for our consumers. We have done it in many products like credit cards, right? For few of our partners, credit card is an end-to-end journey, right? In fact, last year when there was the first wave of COVID, and lending industry almost came to an halt, because of this offline leg, because of the lockdown and everything, people were not able to go to the consumers and collect documents, get this signs done, etc., etc. And then, most of these things, there was a clear focus how to get everything online, right? People started working on it. Paisabazaar was one of the first organization in the BFSI space. We got our Paisa stack ready. In fact, we got a few awards also for that, and few of our banking partners are using and utilizing that stack, right? So we are working towards getting everything online and making it end to end. But still, there are a few products like home loan. Home loan is an example where the process is long, and a large part of that process is still offline, right? So that is still not integrated. So there might be a case where we and our partner both would be, sending communication to the consumer, but we would want to eradicate that. We would want to get everything at one place and just give a seamless experience to our consumers.
Thanks, Sachin. That was quite insightful. Kashyap, coming to you, Pepperfry we know has created this niche for itself in furniture, decor, furnishing space, and you two are not digital only platform. You have your Pepperfry experience centers as well. And while it may sound cliched, we know that consumer journey is no longer linear, and there are multiple touch points that they come across before they make that buying decision, right? So having said that, consumers still expect that seamless shopping experience. So in your case, the other thing I also noticed, Kashyap, is that you do have a lot of these product posts that you put up also on your social media platforms, which are fairly popular. So if you could talk about how are you leveraging MarTech, how are you leveraging, let's say, omni-channel platforms for harnessing all this data from varied sources to weave that offline plus online, cohesive strategy that you put together?
Sure. So you're right in the sense that when we initially started, we were a online only platform. We just had a website, and then we obviously launched a mobile site. We launched an app, and after 3-4 years of our existence, we also started launching our stores. We call them Pepperfry Studio Pepperfry. Today we have 105 of them across the country, and they form a significant chunk of our sales. The sales originate from there. We're able to track people who come into the stores and what they buy subsequently, whether they do an assisted purchase while in the store or whether they go back home and buy it subsequently. So for us, it was extremely important to ensure that in our category, there has always been this theory around furniture which says that touch and feel is important. People need to see the product, etc. And for a very long time, we felt that that's the traditional way of shopping, and we will be able to build a large business purely by being digital. But over a period of time, we realized that there was enough data that showed us that for really big ticket purchases like large three-seater sofa sets or big dining sets, etc., we weren't getting the full share of what we thought was the right share of those kind of larger ticket size purchases purely online. And then we experimented with our stores, and then we figured that we could, wherever we opened up the stores, the share of the bigger ticket sizes moved up. So for us, very clearly, it became that it's actually not two types of customers, the online customer and the offline customer. It's actually the same customer. When they're buying coffee tables or shoe racks or side tables, or even let's say one chair or something, or even a simple bed, they're willing to do it online. But the moment they're doing up their entire room, living room, they're looking to buy sofa sets, entertainment units, maybe a cabinet or two, etc. They're not willing to do it entirely online. Okay, they want more guidance, they want advice, they want design advice. They're also buying 4 or 5 items, so they're willing to take the extra effort. See, one of the things about online is, yes, there is a large catalog, but convenience is a big thing. Okay, if you're just buying one office chair, you can buy it online. But if you're buying 5 or 6 items and you're going to spend 1 lakh rupees, people are willing to actually go down to a store and do it. So we found that it's the same customer, okay, but for different use cases, they prefer. It's not that people don't do the other thing. People do buy, very big ticket items, cart sizes of 5 or 10 items leading up to 2-3 lakhs online also. But there's a preference. There's a preference for those kind of things. They go to omnichannel. They go to the physical store. So we figured it's the same customer, so they need to get the same kind of experience fundamentally. Okay. So there are a bunch of things that we did. I think we learned along the way. I don't think there was any predefined strategy. So one of the things is, if you go to our app or our website or whatever, on every single page, you will find based on your PIN code, once we identify where you're browsing from, you will find the nearest store address. So, basically, if somebody feels that they're not ready enough to make the purchase online, they can go to the nearest store. We tell them it's 7 kilometers away. Your store that is closest to you this is the address, and it's just 4 kilometers away or whatever. So that's one of the things that we do. So at no point in time do we think online and offline are competing. We try to integrate and we try to send people from one place to the other. Another example of what we do is, a lot of people come to our website and then they don't complete their transaction. So they drop off. Okay, so we actually then have various triggers that go to them, either in terms of an email or an SMS, which basically says, do you need more consulting? And sometimes we do phone calls. We put a phone number where they can request a call back. So we reach out to them through these channels, some of them electronic, some of them physical. And a lot of times we realize that we need to when we call people up, we realize that they needed more advice or more interaction. And sometimes it happens on the phone, sometimes it becomes a video call. So a lot of our transactions nowadays are happening through actually video calls. And these video calls are actually handled from our studios. So people in the studios, so it's not a simple call center. These are people within our studios, especially during off-peak hours, when the walk-ins are not so many. They actually conduct all these callback video calls and take people through the catalog. They try to, show the functionality, open the wardrobe, show the desk, etc., and try and complete the transaction. So what started off as an online journey actually culminates with a virtual video call. And sometimes what happens is, actually we invite them based on their requirement, etc. We invite them to come to the store, because we are then able to talk to them about the different kind of things that they can see physically, etc., and do it. So uh, just so that's become again a very, very important aspect of being able to convert large ticket size customers for us. Some other things that we do, for example, to integrate across the board is we realize that when people are looking for multiple product categories, they're looking at sofa sets, dining sets, beds, etc. Uh, Obviously, I mean, our tracking tells us that these people are multi-category buyers. Okay, chances are they're doing up their entire house, etc. So the database actually kind of flags these customers as potential high-value customers. And similarly, we have an outreach program which again goes out through SMS and email, etc., which tells them that, hey, you're looking to buy multiple items, and we will provide you more outreach to the studios. So we're able to send them to the studios to kind of get that particular experience. So based on the signals that we get, so they didn't call us or they did not ask us for and it's not even an abandoned cart or an abandoned browse or a wish list kind of a session. It's simply based on their browse behavior. We're able to identify their potential high value, and we're able to reach out to them to get them to the physical stores to kind of convert better. The other things that happen as a matter of fact is 90% of the people who visit our studios have already browsed our website. Okay. Forget all of these special channels that we've built, but I think in general, if somebody walks in, 90% of the times they've browsed. More than 50% of the time, they're already registered customer with us. Okay. So they have done their research online, okay, and looked at items, and then they finally, when they want to kind of pull the trigger and purchase, they walk into the store to get more advice, experience with, and so on. The other point I want to mention is that of 100 items that we actually sell in a store, okay, 95 items are actually from the catalog. They're not from the store. So to drive home the point, basically what happens is that the entire experience, whether it is the digital experience or the store, it's one uniform catalog, it's one uniform experience. So people walking into the store do not buy items. So our catalog is 1 lakh strong. Okay. In a particular store, you have 200 items only. Okay. So but what happens is 95% of the items that people who walk into the store, what they end up actually buying is from the catalog. It's not from the store. So the store only serves as a confidence building measure, as a design consultation, opportunity, and people actually then switch back to the website to kind of actually buy. So it's entirely seamless. It's the same customer, and the entire experience is one single experience that people are getting. Similarly, during the lockdown, one of the things that we realized when our stores were shut, okay, when the stores were opened also, but customers were not confident about walking into the stores, most of the sales happened through video channel as a channel. So it was neither just the website nor just a walk into the store, but video as a channel worked very, very significantly in order to make things complete in terms of making the transactions happen. So our approach really to this has been that customer is the same. They have different use cases, and we need different formats to facilitate different use cases. Customer gives us signals online, okay, either proactive signals by requesting a call back or something, or even just kind of inherent signals through their browsing behavior, which tells us that they may be more amenable for the other channel to kind of drive for closure. So our entire approach has been that use whichever channel that is possible, that is relevant to the particular customer, and ensure that there is data flowing seamlessly from the online signals to the offline team, so that the offline team can then culminate the sale, etc. The other point is, obviously, anybody who walks into the store, obviously it's a small fraction of what happens online, but they all, based on their behavior, they flow back into the same database as far as we are concerned, from the customers that come in through the online database. So all the marketing offers, all the incentives, all the various kinds of programs that we run are based on the fact that they belong to a certain segment in the overall scheme of things. So we don't differentiate between different channels. and the outreach could be via a phone call or an SMS or a push notification or an email. But that's fundamentally based on the behavior that they have displayed, what have they purchased in the past, how recently have they purchased, and they are part of a larger, database, and they're segmented on the basis of standard segmentation parameters, and then reached out to, in an integrated format.
Thanks for that, Kashyap. In fact, it's very interesting to know that convenience still is so relevant. While we talk about digital and e-commerce and digital payments picking up in such a big way, there is still a reason why offline retail continues to remain a dominant force. And actually, you have preempted some of my questions, but one thing that I definitely want to ask you, Kashyap, is you have this well-oiled engine, if you will, where you have data coming in, and you're doing everything to ensure that end of the day customers' requires are being met. But there will always be certain things that you wish you could do with this platform that you have at your disposal, which we are not able to enable at this point in time. So are there any specific challenges the Martech platform or omnichannel platform that you're using, which you wish had that?
Yeah, still, I think there are a lot of bits that are, and I'm using the word Martech a little liberally. I don't think that tech is, at least in the way we've implemented it so far, very, very sophisticated. So there is a lot of manual intervention when we are switching data across platforms, etc. And therefore, there is an opportunity for example, that to become entirely seamless. One of the other things that we keep wondering about is our ability to localize the entire experience. So on the website, we get anywhere between, on an average 4 to 5 lakh visits every day. Okay, but they come from all the pin codes in the country. Okay, and our 100 stores, they potentially cover a certain number of pin codes. Let's assume 100 pin codes. Okay, our ability to actually capture data at a very, very local level from visits, okay, and then being able to retarget them for visiting stores, etc. That's the next part of the holy grail that we are pursuing. The That's one. The other thing, so being able to bring a local angle to the online browsing so that we can utilize our footprint, because we now have plans to go to 200 stores in the next 6 to 8 months. So it'll become a very important part of our entire experience, and therefore that's one holy grail that we're trying to bridge. The other thing that we are bridging, and I don't think it's truly an omni-channel kind of a thing, is really the entire AR VR piece, which I think, again, if you're thinking of channels, if you think app is a channel, website is a channel, email is a channel, then I think the whole AR VR immersive experience is a different type of a channel. That's something that we are kind of focused on in terms of trying to give customers a different type of experience, hybrid experience, to kind of help them to take decisions faster and smarter.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Kashyap. And coming to you, Tushar, Route Mobile, does that magic of enabling clients to bring all channels and integrating them together with your omni-channel platform. So two quick questions without you revealing your secret sauce. One is, how do you bring data from offline and online together? And also we are reading and hearing about in the near future certain challenges that may come across when it comes to, let's say, deprecation of cookies, availability of mobile ad IDs, and this may impact maybe some of the online data that we collect. So does this pose any challenge for us in the near future?
Thanks, Vishal, and I and my team are delighted to be in company of such an esteemed panel. I'll have to break this question in two parts. One is how and if it's possible to bring the offline and online data sources together, and second, beyond the deprecation of cookies and its impact on the companies and advertisers. So the first part first, the online data. Let's understand what exactly we mean by online data. Basically, it means anything that has been generated from a real-time online channel and activities. So internet browsing, emails, social media activity, in-app activity, you name it. These are, from where you create this content. It can relate to your content to your prospects and customers who are consuming the device. They're using the actions they're taking. So it's sort of the information you can certainly use to create, a dynamic customer experience strategy and to deliver more personalized marketing communications. Now, on the other hand, offline obviously is any data that comes from an offline source, which means that there are various sources like a data set, which one can buy from third parties, customer information that you may have collected from an interaction, such as an in-store purchase or anything else in this category is it online. So now, if you are able to tie them together, you can understand which online interaction resulted in offline sale, and maybe vice versa as well. So you can then get a deeper understanding of what activity actually drives revenue, and which is a very, very important, a significant insight for a marketer. It also ensures the consistent and a less fragmented customer experience. So integrating online and offline data, which is also known as data onboarding, it can be challenging. You need to be sure that the online and offline actions match up and can be resolved to a specific customer or specific identity as the word we use it. Also, what is important, that brand needs to consider privacy, of course, and they need to anonymize interaction data wherever possible. But offline data tends to include more personally identifiable information, PII as the term we use it. And as such, it needs to be compliant also with the local regulations. So there are smart platforms, which have the capability. We have this capability of integrating and activating online and offline data in real time. Also, it can help collecting, standardizing, transforming, and enriching the information to provide any marketing a real-time view of the customer. Coming to the second part with cookies, which is supposed to disappear, mobile ad identifiers, which are under threat. Business organization will now have to find new ways to reach unique users. Now, while Google says that it's going to be only planning to phase out the third-party cookie on its browsers, Firefox and Safari has already disabled it. So today, third-party cookie more or less defines marketing strategies of many companies. So, however, with this change, advertisers will have to now draw strategies around first-party cookies, which still will be allowed over the browsers, and which track, the basic data about your own website visitors, which we heard, previous speakers spoke about also. So apart from staying updated on the, what's happening around third party, I think company will have to draw a lot of tactic around what is to be done next. So what are the possible, avenues you can resort to? Building a data ecosystem, investing in AI, machine learning, deploying a marketing automation platform with CDP layer. These are a few things which can help, guide you the customer's journey. And based on learnings you gather through various offline and online sources. So in nutshell, in order to minimize the impact of third-party cookie deprecation, company must now take control of their first-party data. Now, this is to be done by facilitating mutual and ongoing value exchanges with customers. Companies can reduce their reliance on third-party and collect, store, and use first-party data that consumers have consented to providing instead. So, one, of course, taking control of your first-party data. Second is that you should look for technology that not only offers a simpler, more centralized way to manage first-party data across all, but it also sort of insulates you from future browser privacy changes.
So that's quite helpful, Tushar. I know that there are many questions, but we have come right to the end of this session. A big thank you to all my panelists for sharing their experiences and thoughts. So over to you, Swati.
Thank you so much, Vishal, for coming over and moderating this particular session. And thank you so much to all the panelists who made it and shared your insights on this particular topic. Thank you so very much, and have a great evening. Stay safe. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.